Hello, and welcome
Welcome
to.
the Venus report.
We really need a jingle or
Yeah, we
something.
we should have a intro song. We're here. We're in Taurus, Venus and Taurus.
Aries. Venus is in Taurus. See, we're
Yeah,
just so fixated on Venus.
it's March. It's March. What's the date?
17th.
17th, St. Patrick's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So we were really kind of talking about what we were to focus on this week, and Venus has just entered Taurus, which was really prominent.
Yes.
So,
I think it's
kind
at
of-
0 degrees today, right?
yeah, it should be at like 0 or 1 today.
0, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Um,
nice
yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. But before we get into that, how, what else? What is going on?
Yeah. I would say this week felt very hectic, and it was that I was very much feeling the fire water dynamics. Like,
Mm,
and I want to say that it was very much like the Neptune that was square to Mars in Gemini. As of yesterday, there were three planets exactly all in the same place at 25 degrees of Pisces. It was the Sun, it was Mercury, and it was Neptune, and they were all squared to Mars in Gemini at
ooh,
25 degrees.
okay.
So,
Yeah, I definitely felt that.
yeah, I was feeling that too, and I think it's probably because I have like I don't know the exact degrees, which I should by now, but I have two. I have Venus and Mercury in Gemini at the late degrees, so I'm sure that was just hitting it all.
Mm,
But yeah, I was really feeling the hot, like the meeting of water and fire, which is so cool that I actually like I study the kind of just like the seasonality and of things, and it's interesting that in every water season and every time it changes from water into something else, it's always changing from water to fire.
oh yeah, it's
In
always going from water to fire.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Mm,
Pisces to Aries, Cancer to Leo,
Leo
and yeah.
and
So,
Scorpio to Sag.
yeah. Yeah, so and actually it all evens out. It's always going in the same pattern of element, which is cool. So it's always going from like fire to earth to air to water.
Mm,
Isn't that
fire
interesting?
to earth to air to water. It's so interesting because like you can think about how that comes up like in your life and in your body. And like
Yeah.
when you experience emotions, it's like watery and like emotion is
Mhm.
energy in motion. And then when you start to like go into the depths of it, you might encounter some like anger, which can be seen as fire, or you encounter some
Mhm.
transformation, which can be seen as fire, as like transmuting the energy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And
And
then
also like a sparky energy. And like when you're at the end of whatever season, like whatever, I always do like astrology because that's like where you'll find the elements being activated. But like
yeah.
since we're at the end of like Neptune ruled and it's water and it's ethereal and we're going into like a Mars fire, it's like I was feeling very like whoa, like it was just too much of this with this. And
Mm,
I was definitely feeling that dynamic between Neptune and Mars on that square of the mutables.
I feel
I think I
like
have planets in every single mutable sign too, so that probably hit it
mm,
as well.
that's
How
so,
are you feeling?
yeah. Um, this week I've been feeling really like exhausted a little bit. I feel like
Mm.
I took so many actions like a couple weeks ago and like this week that now I'm just feeling like, okay, like I need to take a break or something. Like I
Yeah.
need like time to like integrate like what I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing. And I also feel like a pull to just like work on so many things in my business and not focus on actually like having fun in my life. which has been like
Yeah.
just a big theme. And I'm like, whoa, well, actually, the reason I'm wanting to have my own business is to have fun and to like tune into that like Leo
Can
energy of like,
we talk about that?
yeah,
Like,
like this is,
that is so real for me too. I feel like doing your own thing makes you prioritize that thing, and
yep,
then it makes you forget why you're doing it in the first place. So it's
yes,
like you just have to have a bit of like slack on yourself. You just have to be like, okay, it's time for me to like, it's okay if I if I have a little bit of fun right now. You know what I mean? As in just
yeah,
like letting the priorities and the to-do list aside, because that is so real for everyone, like that I feel like I know who does their own thing and does their own business. It's like you have to really balance that out yourself,
yeah,
which is like kind of hard. You're like, okay, well, is am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? What is everyone else doing? And then we get caught in doing that thing we talked about last week.
yes,
Like not last week, but like looking online and being like, okay, all of these people are entrepreneurs. I don't know them, but like they seem to be on social media like more than me. So like how do I do that more? And then you're like, now I'm just doing stuff that I don't even care about. Like when it
yeah,
comes to social media for me, I'm just like, like I'll hear, but like I'd rather be like focusing on the stuff that I want to focus on and
yeah,
then doing that how it should. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I want it to feel natural.
yeah, same. I feel like with this topic, I love working on my own stuff and having my own business and like building it, like scaling it. And like
Mm.
I get so focused on that where I forget the actual reason that I started this business in the first place, which is to be able to enjoy my life and to create a sense of
Mm.
flow, which I haven't really like, and I think why it's so hard to like shift into that real sense of like, oh, I actually deserve to like have fun and like be an entrepreneur. There's like this feeling of like, okay, I haven't really experienced that before. Life so far has been like, all right, you got to work, 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 and grind, grind, grind in order to get where you want to go. But then when
Mm-hmm.
do you actually arrive? When do you actually arrive at the goal?
Yeah.
And like what I'm learning right now is like actually arriving. Like I'm
Yeah.
arriving at it. And then I'm like, oh, how can I enjoy this and savor this arriving? And like the moments that I'm like doing what I want to do and like I'll notice myself be like in my brain I'm like, oh, you actually got to do this, you have to like write this email, you have to like go ahead and plan this right now rather than go surf or rather than go like walk the dog or do something fun that I
Mm-hmm.
value so deeply that I really
Yeah.
want to do with my life, but like I'm just like, that's for later. But if I keep
Yeah.
doing that, that will be the pattern. I'll be like, oh, my whole life will just be like, oh, that's for later.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
no, exactly. And it it really comes down to your own discernment and your own will and authority to like have boundaries because like and that's the other thing. It's like almost the same. I compare it and I can see it being the same thing as like how like the wellness industry in terms of like not like real wellness, but like the wellness that like you see on just like the like
Yes.
surface level wellness.
Material
It's like
wellness.
material wellness makes you
Yeah.
think that you will reach enlightenment or like you will reach wellness, and it's never, you're never going to actually reach it. So you actually have to like separate yourself in moments where you feel like you achieved something and be like, "Oh, okay, I achieved this. I should actually take a moment and step away
Mm,
and like live out the feeling that I've been
yes.
manifesting this
This whole
whole time."
time.
Because
Yes.
like you will never reach
No.
the like the sensation of I've made it. Like you will never, because there will always be a ladder to climb. Like there will always be another step up, and you'll always know that like you want more for yourself. So unless you take moments to like do that, which I'm so bad at. I should be taking my advice that I'm giving right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like it's really
Uh,
important to have that.
yes. I find that I find that in order to teach your body to do that, because you're saying like, I need to do more of that, and I do too, and I need to listen to my own advice. Like this just brings me to the practice of like teaching your body to enjoy things and to teaching your body the things that you like really want to experience. So like our brain can like know a thing that we need to do, which is like, oh, I need to savor the moment more. But then our patterns come back in and we don't end up doing it because just knowing it doesn't allow the body to change it's like really deep patterns and the neurological patterns that we have of like constantly grasping and going for more. So
Yeah.
like I feel like this Venus and Taurus season is so about, I saw somebody online say this is like digging your nails in, like being actually really fucking like not strict about it, but like really determined and disciplined about enjoying and teaching your
Yes.
body like establishing practices every day, like for 10 minutes a day, seeing if you can meditate, practicing quieting the mind and just enjoying the sensations of your body, like feeling the temperature of your body, like literally those practices will teach the body to then enjoy itself more and then start to like slow down the train of your mind and your action
Yeah.
stream. Do you know what I mean? Like this
Yeah.
is this is also just like what I'm teaching in somatics is like slowing down the neurological mind body like stream that we're under, which is
Yeah.
like constantly grasping. It's a result of our society and so many other things. But it's like this, that's why I want to talk about Venus and Taurus so much, is because Venus and Taurus reminds me of like so much of that, like enjoying sensorily and savoring for a while, like seeing how long we can stretch the enjoyment without being like, I need to do this. I need to do this. Because
No,
a
yeah.
trauma, that's a trauma response because we're like, oh, we're not doing enough. And it can be like this little naggy thing, but it still is a trauma response. So I
Yeah.
feel like Venus and Taurus is all about like rewiring our bodies for enjoyment of sensual pleasures, which is enjoying what we've been building this whole time
Oh
with our
my God.
businesses. Like,
It's so accurate.
yeah.
Taurus, like now that you're saying that, Taurus has also been like an energy that I've not had the pleasure of knowing many, like Taurus sun people. But I know because I'm a Cancer, like, and obviously, like, the moon is exalted in Taurus. Like, I know that, like, Taurus would just probably, like, would be just, like, perfect conversation or something. Like, really, really good energy for me.
Yeah.
And I can, like, sense that Taurus is all about the things that I really value, which is just funny because I'm, like, super Cancer ruled. And it's
Yeah.
like it's literally all about integrating your values and the things that you love and your passions into just like a way more like real and grounded and almost like I feel like Taurus is like a little bit like I want to do this and like be passionate but like in my own like way. You know what I mean?
I want to be a
Versus like
safe, I want to be like comfortable.
yes. I want to be
Yeah.
comfortable while I'm doing it and I want to just like kind of just like feel it out. You know what I mean? And I'm
Mm.
like I just
Feeling it
love
out.
it all. Yes.
I feel like Taurus, if Taurus had like a motto, it would be like feeling it out. like,
Feeling it out. Yep.
like, so
Yeah.
you know what also just came to me is when we're talking about like the earth signs. So like Taurus is like very much likes to be comfortable in its own environment and to like also feel things out and like build stability and feel comfortable. Like I think of like wearing a really like cozy sweater. Like I think of like Taurus, like sweater vibes. I don't know, like comfortable. And then like, and then like moving up to Capricorn, the last earth sign, is like, holy shit, what I'm realizing is like, because I have a Capricorn rising and at 0 degrees, which is like Capricorn energy is like prominent
Potent.
for my being and
Yeah.
like building. building things. I tend towards building spaces and places where I can maybe start to feel that Taurus comfort, but it feels uncomfortable at first because I'm like building something that I know will challenge myself towards building, towards experiencing stability. And
Okay, yeah.
like Capricorn is like the building of the spaces that can be the foundation for that growth that will feel a little uncomfortable, but then you can tune back into the Taurus energy where you can like be comfortable in like the transformation and like I'm picturing like building a big building and you don't know what to fill the rooms with yet, but you're like
Yeah, and
filling one room at a time because you're like walking up to that space and you're looking around the room and you're like, okay, this picture would look good here, and you're like one bit at a
I feel
time,
like
like
that's also
building out.
Virgo though.
Yeah,
Virgo is
I
laying it
forgot to
out.
mention Virgo. Yeah.
So it's like Taurus, I feel like is like the comfort of the home. Capricorn is building it. Virgo is laying it out and like strategically thinking about how it would, like what makes the most sense for you. And like it's
Organized.
concerned with comfort, but it also wants to like build it likes the Capricorn ambition. It's like, yes, we're
Yeah.
gonna build this. We're gonna do it now. We're gonna be organized and like really, really strategic. But like, let's think of this through and make sure we're comfortable. I don't know why
Yeah.
we like are going on this tangent about building, but it's kind of weirdly true and like, and you naturally are trine to all of the Earth energies. So like as a
It's like,
rising
yeah,
Capricorn.
it's like, yeah, I think of with those three earth signs, there's like the Taurus is at the bottom, the Virgo is like the middle piece, and the Capricorn is at the top, the cardinal energy.
Yeah.
We can think about that with all the different signs. Like with the
Yeah.
water element, it's like, what is the water element doing as it moves through the progressions of the water element? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
Cancer
I
is
don't
like
know.
really feeling. Cancer is like really feeling. The first water sign is like, all right, I'm in my feelings and I'm like taking care of myself, right?
Yeah.
And then as you move to Scorpio, it's like, okay, there's depth here and I'm going to dive down into the depths of this feeling and maybe transform some things. And then Pisces is like,
Yeah.
all right, we've seen it all. Now we're connected with the universal.
Yeah, I when I think about water, I feel like there's because of Pisces, it almost makes me feel like there's a deeper meaning behind what water actually means for us as humans. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because Pisces is like the unseen and even can be like Scorpio and Pisces, when you think about both of those energies, it's like the death card and the tarot and like the I don't know what Pisces would be in the tarot. I mean, I feel like it could be the world.
The
That's just the
world.
first thing that
Yeah.
comes to mind. But like just things that are like a bit more like all encompassing, way
Yeah.
more like higher energy. Like it's not about earth. It's not about like
Yeah.
the material things at all. It's more about like I want to say enlightenment. You
Hmm.
know, like it's concerned with
With
having
larger,
like deep
like,
realizations.
with
Yeah,
larger
like
aspects.
almost like yeah, like water maybe could be like deep realizations about life. But then I'm like, okay, well maybe that's air. Like I don't know.
Maybe it's
I
air. Yeah.
can't tell. For me, I'm just like I can't tell if this is my Gemini stuff coming through or like my Cancer stuff because I have so many planets all at the cusp of like the air and water of Cancer and Gemini. So sometimes I'm like, oh, like it's all about deep thinking, but like I don't know. Is it? Like I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you can also just tune into like the season of Cancer to Gemini to Cancer and like what that
Yeah.
feels like in nature, and then you can be like, oh, that's like
That's
where a lot of my
exactly.
influence. That's where a lot of my influence is.
Yeah. That's exactly how I love. Like I love interpreting like even personality traits based on the time, even though it's different like environments everywhere in the world. It's just still,
Right.
I feel like, beneficial for me to feel out the energy that is present no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like
Well, there's no lack of validity in like our seasons. And the
yeah.
seasons are, you know what I mean? Like that's
Mhm.
just that's nature where we
Right.
are.
Yeah.
So there's an intelligence there.
Mhm. Yeah.
So cool.
So cool. All right. Did
Um,
we want to talk about maybe like Aries season and like just little things that are upcoming in Aries? Aries to
sure.
come?
Yeah. Yeah. Aries
Yeah.
season. Mm-hmm.
Aries season. So the
When does
sun
it start?
will, yeah. This year, I know it's a little different every year with like the exact day. This year, it's on the 20th. The sun will enter Aries,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be there until April 20th. So the 20th to the 20th.
Mm.
We've got right at the start a new moon in Aries. This month, and this it will be on the 21st, so the day after. And I found that this month is really interesting because there's a new moon in Aries on the 21st, and then on the 20th, the same day that the sun moves into Taurus, we have a new moon solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
we kind of have two new moons technically in Aries,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting. I don't
And
know
the
what that's
eclipses.
called.
Yeah, me neither. But the eclipses will be intense. It'll be on the Libra Aries axis, which is like new. We haven't seen that in
Hmm.
a while.
Yeah.
I remember reading like we were on the Scorpio Taurus eclipses like this past year and the
Yeah.
year before. So like now there's like this whole new energy of like yeah, I feel like the spring and Taurus season will be there'll be some new shifts in like the way we experience destiny
Hmm.
and like how we like during eclipse season like things happen that were just like supposed to happen.
Hmm.
That's how I experience eclipses a lot of the time.
See, yeah, like I I can't tell what eclipses are for me. Like
Mm.
I feel like eclipses never really show up to me obviously. Like I feel like they might show up in ways that like I can't even see them, but I feel like they quite like I never really I do notice an energy in my environment. I do notice like this little like kind of like crazy energy, and it feels almost it's the same energy as like a holiday like today. You know how it's like
Mm.
people are out and about. It's different
Yes,
because it's a holiday and
yes,
everyone's like high energy and like especially St. Patty's Day, it's like everyone's drinking and it's like full moon energy, like people are going
yes.
crazy. Like that's kind of how I feel around eclipses. It just feels like
Hmm.
people are like wanting too much out of a moment almost, but they don't
Yes.
even realize it. They're not like intentionally doing that, but they just like an eclipse is just like that like hyper energy, you
Yes.
know?
Seeking a lot of stimulation from a moment is like I
Right.
feel like eclipses bring about that. And that's kind of what
Yeah.
holidays are. Holidays feel like
Hmm.
eclipses for sure.
Yeah. But like in a weird way,
Like yeah.
not like that a holiday would do anything about destiny, but it just like it has
Mm.
that same like hyper focus energy. But I found it
Yes.
really funny or just weird that the sun will enter Taurus 4 hours after the solar eclipse is
Ooh.
exact. Which it's like funny. So like the solar eclipse, it's like at 29 degrees of Aries, and then 4 hours later, it's like okay, now we're in Taurus. So that will
Yeah.
be an interesting time.
It's like a last culmination of Aries and what that
Yeah.
means to be like like what it means to be yourself, like individual versus like the we, which is the Libra. And like that'll be
Yes.
so interesting. And then and then right after it's like, all right, shift. So it'll be like a
Now,
culmination point.
but this month is arguably the biggest month in astrology for this year. Because, like, think about it. There's one new moon. There's two new moons in the sign that literally is like the conceiving sign. There's two new moons there, which are new moons are the conception. So it's all about this like new energy. We have a solar eclipse also in that mix. And then Pluto enters Aquarius on the side at the beginning of Aries season. I also noted here it's literally just new moon on the 21st. Pluto enters Aquarius on the 23rd. Mars enters Cancer on the 25th, which is kind of, and that's your placement. That's kind of a bigger deal because the Mars doesn't leave signs, and I have it written down here because I did the math. But Mars spends about 60 days in a sign, so like 2 months. So that's definitely a shift of energy. It will be out of Gemini. Well, actually, I'll say this: it's not always 60 days because there's retrogrades involved.
Yeah.
But
Like Mars has been in Gemini for a long time.
for
This was
3
like
years, right? No,
I don't know. No,
I don't
not
know.
3 years. No, not 3 years. It's been in
2
Gemini for a
years?
long time.
I
No,
feel
just
like it's
longer
been there
than
for like a year,
longer
at
than
least.
normal, for
Yeah,
sure.
maybe that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Where and Gemini is in your eighth house.
Yes.
Mm.
Yep. Yeah,
So
full moon in Libra on April 6th, and that's really it for Aries season.
so I just want to talk about Mars for a second. So you've been experiencing a Mars in your eighth house transit. I've been experiencing a Mars in my sixth house. And I don't know about you, but I can see it showing up. Like my work and my day-to-day routines have totally transformed and shifted. And like a lot of things have been going on where I'm like
Yeah.
doing new things in my day.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Do you have any planets in the 6th house?
No.
Yeah. So
Have you been seeing Mars in transit your eighth? Like how is that?
I've kind of, and I'm trying to like understand. I'm literally going to pull up my chart right now because I'm like, I want to know exactly where it is right now.
Yeah.
But I I feel like because I have a lot of personal planets in
Yeah.
Gemini, it hasn't really been noticeable up until like recently, which is funny because now it's at the later degrees of Gemini. And it's almost like I haven't noticed it up until kind of recently. And it's only really activating like my personal like journey, I guess. Yeah, Mars has already like went over all of my planets. So it's
Interesting.
kind
So
of
do you
like,
wait, do you have Mars in Gemini in your natal?
no, I have Mars in Virgo, so
Oh,
square.
okay. Oh, right.
Yeah.
I feel like
Um
when a planet goes over your personal planets, it could just like you just get like a it just gets mixed up with what you already have going on. So it doesn't feel like
yeah.
that would be my argument is like because I have no planets in the sixth house ever, and when transiting planets go through that house, I'm like, "Oh, I feel it really big because I'm like there's an influence here now." Where
Yeah.
you already have a ton of influence in your eighth house. So when Mars is there, you're like, oh, okay, there's just more focus on where my life is already focused on.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's partially kind of like, I mean, I definitely felt that Mars Neptune for sure. So, like,
Yeah.
I felt it, but I don't know if it was because it was activated by another square. But, like I said, I do have a planet in every mutable sign, although they're not exactly square to each other. I have planets in all mutable signs. So, everything is like could be square. You know what I mean? Mars was
That,
eventually was
yeah.
square and
Yeah.
opposite to planets during this whole time in Gemini. So
True. Squares are big. So on the 20th, which is on Monday, March 20th, Venus and the North Node come together. in
Mm.
Taurus, which is just cool because Venus is going to be newly in Taurus. And when the North Node comes together, I was reading this article that its theme is hunger. Like, and you know, when the North Node, how the North Node in like traditional and Hellenistic astrology is symbolized by the dragon, the head of the dragon, that's like
Mm-hmm.
ever seeking like satisfaction, and is never really satiated. But it's like that's
Yeah.
kind of its hunger point. And at the south node is the tail of the dragon, which is like it kicks up stuff from past lives. It's like where it's coming from, and its
Mm.
power and its skills. And the north node is like where it's headed. So Venus coming together with the north node could be such a good moment for like a vortex of what you really want coming to you, and like this feeling into your hunger for life or your desires, because Venus
Mm.
is such about desires. And like what I wrote down was learning how to say fuck yes to things that actually feel like a yes in
Mm-hmm.
our bodies, like, and it could, I feel like this conjunction could bring about like seeking stimulation in ways that could be detrimental to our health, because we might have patterns of like seeking stimulation, but like when we really tune into like what really feels like a yes in my body, like what feels really
Mm-hmm.
good,
Yeah.
and also safe, like for myself, like letting your desires take up more of that space. I feel like that'll be a good moment for our desires, and like understanding where they come from and not demonizing them.
Yeah.
I
So
also want to
this
say,
is a
yeah,
conjunction.
yeah, it's
It's
a
a
conjunction.
conjunction. Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that
Yeah,
energy.
it's like it reminds me of like a portal, because Venus is like right over that portal point. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
the pull to Venus will be big on that
Yeah.
day, like afterwards.
Yeah.
I also really wanted to talk about like just I don't know, the symbolism of Venus and how it can be like, you know, how when we talk about Venus, it's very much like beauty and aesthetic and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like those kind of things can be really, they can be seen as material and like
Mm-hmm.
uh, surface level and like superfluous and like just like, okay, what is that, right?
Right. Yeah.
But, and I feel like with aesthetic, there's something deeper there. There's something
Yeah.
deeper that has to do with how an aesthetic makes you feel, what an aesthetic can bring up, like memories, nostalgia, and that kind of thing. Like, and that's important to pay attention
Mm-hmm.
to. It's not
Yeah.
just something that's like surface level, oh, aesthetic, like that's pretty, like I look good. It's like really like how do you feel? And if you
Yeah.
feel truly, truly good in your body and in your life, like that is what Venus really speaks to. And
Yeah.
it can like yeah, because materialist stuff, like it can get so demonized, and it can be
Mm-hmm.
like unhealthy to focus on that all the time,
Yeah. And I
you
feel
know.
like, yeah, I feel like Venus, what you just said about aesthetics, I feel like it also can give way to, for whatever reason, I don't know if this is just like my thoughts coming through, but like, it almost makes me feel like Venus could be ruled by things of the past, like, like how you said, I don't know, what you were just saying about, the North Node and the South Node. Like, for some reason, Venus aesthetics and how aesthetics make you feel personally, that's an
Hmm.
extremely personal thing. And like,
Yeah,
where does that come from? It comes from your experiences in life and all the little intricate moments that have caused you to feel a certain way towards, for instance, a certain color. Like,
yeah,
you could never grasp in one moment or time why something makes you feel the way it does, because you've just unconsciously taken all of it in, whether that's like through your family lineage. Like, it's making me feel like Venus could, like, the deeper meaning of Venus could mean where you originally, like, where you've originated, and how you've accumulated your experiences that cause your interests to be the way that they are over time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's just a really, if you dive into any planet, like, you could get this
Yeah.
deep, but like, this is how I feel about Venus. Like, and just
Yeah.
like the interests that lie beneath the surface. Like, there's a reason why, like, I love My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
And like, even though you're in my family and you've had like very similar things, it's like the same as like looking at twins and being like, why does
Yes.
one have this like this affinity towards blank when they have pretty much the same birth chart, when you're an
Mm-hmm.
astrologer, it's like the same birth chart. So it's like, what makes them different? And I feel like it's Venusian growth, experience
Mm.
over life, and the accumulation of what is now your interests that you would never be able to, like, conceptualize.
Yes. Yes. I love that. It's like, what do you think is beautiful? Like, what makes something beautiful to you? Like
Mm-hmm.
that is like the big question of Venus. And it can also, when you were saying that, I also was thinking like every planet can really go back to like the root of like your interest and your lineage and like how you were brought up. And like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Mars, the opposing energy of Venus can be like how you take action. And that can stem from how people in your life took action. What felt good for you to take action on when you were little? What felt like bad? What associations with action did you have?
Or
Right?
yeah, and Mars could be like, where did your initial drive out of the womb? Where was that drive? Like, where, in what area of life did that live? And like,
Mm-hmm.
I just remember our dad saying to you and I, or maybe it was just me, but he was like, I don't follow suit to the thing about how people say, like, oh, you're raised a certain way and therefore you are a certain way, meaning like your personality comes out in this way because you were raised that way. And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't really follow that, because he was like, the day you were born and the day your sister was born, you guys had very, very similar personality traits that you do now. He
Mm-hmm.
was like, Liz, you just
Yeah.
wouldn't give up. You just, even as like a little infant, you like were just so determined to like not let something get in your way. And like Kate, you
Mm-hmm.
just always had like this like kindness, like easeful like way of like going about life. And it's just funny. That's how I would think of Mars, the
Yeah.
origin of Mars.
It's and like when you come into this world, you already are away. Like you
Yeah,
already
you
have
already are.
a blueprint, which can be looked at as your astrological blueprint and past lives. Like it also speaks like the chart. I feel like speaks to the things that we were born with, and like what for
Hmm.
whatever reason we came into this life with like a sense of that. And I feel
Hmm.
like something that is alive for me, like for an example, when I was little, I would just like sit in one place and just like
Hmm.
stare, and I would just like would feel like I was like reflective as a kid. And I
Hmm.
have North Node, Moon, and North Node, Moon, and Venus in my 12th house in Sag.
Mm.
So that to me seems like a way that I'm like seeking truth in the moment. I'm seeking truth. I'm trying to find
Yeah.
it by staying still, which is 12th house. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, and like
No,
that's how
yeah.
things come out. Like, and I would like it's not that my conditioning is something that has happened too, but the conditioning often isn't spoken or isn't represented in the birth chart. Do you see that way? I feel
Yeah.
like
It's not,
societal
it's,
conditioning is not represented in the birth chart. Therefore, you when you
yeah.
read someone's chart, you have to like take those pieces with how they are on a cellular level, like how what their blueprint is.
Yeah, part of me wants to say that the outer planets, or sorry, the second half of the year in the zodiac, meaning from Libra to Pisces.
Top half of the chart.
Yes, and or wherever that is in your chart, meaning like it doesn't exactly have to be like that top, or it could just
Yeah.
be main on the constellations. But for some reasons, part of me wants to say maybe you could see insight into the conditioning of your life in those areas.
Why do you say
And
that?
because it's all about how you relate to the other.
World. Yeah.
Yeah, so like where but like I'm not gonna say that that's like for certain
Wow.
because
I like love that though because
yeah, and you know how some people say, okay, Saturn represents your father in the chart, the moon represents
yeah,
your mom. Like
yeah,
I don't know how much I really see that. I can see it
yeah.
for some reason I can see it in other people's charts. Like I can like for whatever reason it pops up to me and I'm like, oh, that's because like that's like the dad in that person's chart. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But for whatever reason, my own, it doesn't feel the same way. But yeah, like external influence, whether it's like from the seventh house to the 12th house, or from where Libra is in your chart to where Pisces is, like maybe those inklings or those placements or house formats, where however that lays in your chart, could give away to how you relate in your conditioning.
Society, like, and how you have been conditioned in society.
Yeah,
That's really interesting
yeah.
because I just think about how it lays on my chart too, and I'm like,
Mm,
oh, that. Yeah, I just feel like there's so much to explore inside of the birth chart and outside of the birth chart that I
yeah.
never, you know what's interesting with astrology? I never find something with a client or someone's birth chart or my birth chart that doesn't relate back to astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm trying to find things that like aren't astrology
Mm,
and I can't.
yeah. And like, give me an example of that.
Like when you look around your world or look around your life and you're like, "Oh, that tree looks really beautiful swaying in the wind." And you're
Oh,
like,
you just mean
"Oh,
like day
that's
to
that's
day.
like Taurus energy." Like I'm trying to find something in just in the world. Like how did
Yeah.
like just
Yes.
astrology is a worldview,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's correct. And
Yeah.
also, nothing is not astrology. Same thing where nothing is not your worldview. So
Mm-hmm.
astrology is a lens through which you look at the world, and contained in that lens is the whole world. Your experiences, your conditions,
Yeah.
your society, like the crazy polarity of good and bad in this world. Like, do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to say? Like,
Yep.
everything can be seen as astrology, and that's why I think it is such a beautiful, compassionate practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I feel like that's exactly how I see the world too. Like I see the world through astrology, for sure.
Yeah, and like, and it's not that I like label people as, oh, that you're, yeah, that's this energy. But like, I see it in a complex way more and more, where I'm like
Mm-hmm.
understanding the nuances of like all the aspects and like what a square and a trine and a conjunction can all mean together. And I'm like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many, there's infinite manifestations of the birth chart, so it just
Mm-hmm.
gives you more of an excuse to keep studying and looking at the world that way without being
Yeah.
so defined. Like, there's one other thing that I want to say too is like, when you see astrology memes, the astrology
Mm-hmm.
memes are helpful for understanding the energy of each sign, and I think they're also detrimental because they
Mm-hmm.
put each sign in a complete box.
Yeah.
And a sign doesn't exist in a box because it has a polarity and it has a
Mm-hmm.
duality, and it also exists on the spectrum of the axis. So like when you're talking about
And it
Libra,
also
you're also
exists,
talking about Aries. Like,
yeah, and it also exists with all with all the other planets.
Yeah.
Always, because there's never been an interpretation of a sun sign like, okay, astrology is present in a human. All the signs
Mhm.
are present in a human. All the signs are present in a event. All
Mhm.
signs are present in, so there's obviously other influences. And yeah,
Yeah.
that is putting it in a box. But what is interesting about, but yeah, it's just so interesting that there is a definitive, kind of a definitive um, character and archetype to each. And yes,
Yeah.
people have like, yes, if you see memes and like it's just like kind of regurgitated information, it might come out and be less accurate over time.
Totally. I agree.
But
I
like,
agree
but
totally.
yeah, like there's still something about like you can sense that like Pisces, like we were just in Pisces season. Do you know what I mean? And that
There's
is
yeah.
what I find the most interesting about astrology is that like
There's
you can tell that there's a change in an energy when the sun, like for instance, at this time every month, there's always a shift. It's like a very subtle shift, and you can only really notice it if you are paying attention to your environment and the
it's
powers that be.
it's exactly. And when you're talking about the powers that be and like the subtle shifts, there's a quality of like meta awareness that you need to have to like tap into that. It's not even like you're
Mm-hmm.
tapping it, you're like you're zooming out with like your meta awareness of like the whole world and your experience within it, that you're
Mm-hmm.
like sensing a shift and you're like, wow, things have shifted from this like swirling of emotions and I was really caught up in things for like a month, and now things feel clear and things feel a little bit more clear for me to move forward. Like that's, I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
shift from Pisces to Aries. But like
Yeah.
yeah, like when I don't know, I think looking at the
Yeah.
world. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And saying whatever, yeah, and looking at the world through astrology, yes. But yes, when you're looking at a transit, it's possible for it to just be expressed in its essence to your perspective, right? So like for instance how I keep talking about this Mars square that was with Pisces, I may have noticed that because I have Saturn at 24 degrees of Pisces and the sun was at that degree. Neptune was at that degree. Like I had that
Yeah.
activation happening. Plus,
Yeah.
I have a lot of planets in Gemini. So, like, there could be moments where transits feel just like purely solo themselves, as in like, oh, that was
Yeah.
Mars Neptune. But I think you also have to take into account we are literally at the precipice of changing from a Neptune slash Jupiter ruled sign into Mars. So
Mm.
we're like, we're feeling that energy right now as it is. But yes, there's also other things at play. So like when you say like, oh, I didn't really feel a transit. Like when I feel that way, it's
Hmm.
mainly because there's like other things that might just be taking like even like just negative, it just like it's like a negative charge, like well here's Mars like here in your chart, but actually Chiron is over here and it's making it just like even out, right? So like you
Yeah.
just don't even feel it. But yeah, yeah, it's hard because like when you look at transits and you're just like, oh, this is gonna be tough. Like I have like my sun conjunct Saturn right now. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, take into account other planets, but also, yes, like take note if you do feel just that. But know that
Yeah.
like there are other planets at play and they could make you not feel it,
Definitely.
you know?
Like it can be like a negative charge, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anything
Yep.
else?
I don't think so. Yeah.
I feel like there was one more thing about Venus. Okay, so Venus on March 30th, at the end of this month, March 30th, Venus will conjunct Uranus. And that's,
Ooh,
I feel like that's like a big one. Is
that's
it,
kind of big.
yeah, like Uranus is like electrical energy and big senses of change and yeah, I feel like this is like how we can relate to enjoying the simple pleasures of Venus. And like when we feel overstimulated and like big changes around the horizon, we might want to like slip into hypervigilance and like nervous action taking, like nervousness. And that's very like Uranus is like buzzy, so it can have like an effect on your nervous system that's like zzz, like that kind of
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
And I just feel like for this transit, like enjoying small pleasures, simple pleasures is going to be the antidote to that. And it'll maybe provide some like big changes and shifts in how your body can respond to your life, like in a way that you really want it to. If you really want to tune in again, like what we were talking about before, to like really enjoying the life that you've created for yourself and like
Yes.
enjoying the process, like enjoying, savoring the process.
Yeah.
That day, March 30th, I think will be like really good for like noticing that.
Yeah. And I I've been trying to notice Uranus with this energy of Taurus, and like they just seem like such opposites. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They just, but they are like essentially both fixed,
You know
right?
what? Yeah. You know what reminds me you know what's very Uranus and Taurus to me is the new version of currency, like Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yep.
That's absolutely a manifestation of that. So
Yeah.
it can be hard to imagine because we don't know. It's like Uranus brings new things that we like haven't seen yet that are
Yeah,
like
like new
earthly,
inventions.
like new currencies.
Yeah.
So I think that's a cool way to see it.
Yeah. And I always find an importance on like the ascendant and descendant line. Like I feel like
Hmm.
I should be feeling it more. Like Taurus, that Taurus energy in my seventh house, I feel like I'd never really, like I almost never really notice it, kind of. Like, do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But
Yeah.
I I do notice the Uranus transit happening in the external world. I definitely notice that
Yes.
for
I
sure.
I think like okay, one last thing. Do you ever notice that when like a transit is coming up and it hasn't even happened yet, like for example Venus and Taurus, like my mind has already been focused and thinking about how do I enjoy my life more. And my Taurus is in
Yes.
my Taurus is in my fifth house. But do you notice that like
Yeah.
before transits, your mind is already like looking in that direction?
Yeah.
And
Because we are connected to that. We are. Like there's
crazy.
no way. Like
It's
I
like things come up from myself where
yeah.
I'm like,
And
oh,
then you're like, oh, that
I
makes
want to
sense.
have more, yeah, and then I want to have more fun in my life. And then literally, like 3 days later, it's like Venus is moving into this new energy of Taurus in my fifth house, which is all about play. And I'm like, okay, I didn't even think about that until,
And Venus is in her joy in the fifth house too.
right. That's so cool. Like,
Yeah.
it's
So
just cool
yeah,
to see
it's
that.
like yeah. And I love how in some astrologers kind of like say like the gods, like the planets were once seen as the gods because and like why do you think that? It's probably
Right.
because they would be moving around the zodiac and would be bringing in this new inspiration towards something in your life. And then you're like, "Oh, that's weird. I have Aries ruling like my career house and I'm like wanting to like shift into careers and then like Mars and the sun and Venus are all there. Huh. Like I wonder, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah. It's
all
like,
just it's the
mm,
seasons of each planet. Like the planet itself has like a season in
right.
your personal chart. So
Yeah.
like the season of Uranus being in Taurus, it's not actually hitting anything for me personally. I mean, it
Hmm.
might have. It did actually hit my like ascendant with my north node and all that, but like
Yeah.
it wasn't really. But then like once it moves into Gemini, it's gonna friggin' I don't know what Uranus is gonna do when it hits all my personal planets. Like, who
Yeah,
knows?
it'll be
But
interesting. It'll be interesting.
I'll be ready for it because I'll be
You'll
like,
be ready
oh, yeah,
because your mind is turning in that direction anyways.
yeah,
Like
like the way that
that's
like my card is playing out. Yeah, exactly.
that's so cool. Like I did someone's chart recently, and they were like, "Okay, something happened on the date that you told me like something would shift. Like, what is this? Are you like a witch?" And I was like, "No, like I'm not giving you like a future prediction. Like I'm just what I do is like honor the magic and the absolute wonder of how the planets actually they don't control us. And they
Yeah,
also like they just bring new changes. They bring about changes where you can be conscious of it as it happens. So that's
yeah,
what I'm like giving people in these chart readings is like the consciousness that things are shifting no matter what.
mm-hmm.
And you can either be conscious of it or not. And being conscious of it often helps you move through it with ease and like actually take advantage of it, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
harness it.
exactly.
And that's what I think is so like is such an understanding that you have to have about astrology is that the planets aren't making you do this
Yeah.
and they're just reflecting. It's like a constant mirror of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it's like this this binary of like okay, everything's written in the stars and there's like everything's already written for me and there's like my destiny is already figured out and I'm just living through it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's this
Yeah.
other side where it's like I can control my life and I only through my self will and my actions can I control my life.
Yeah.
And meeting in the middle is where astrology comes in, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like where it's
It's
like,
just
yeah,
gonna
you
show
can
you.
control. It's like you can control your life through your actions, very much so. And there's things that are just happening on a subtle level that you can tune
Yeah.
into, which is
Yeah.
like your destiny, right?
Mm-hmm. Like if it's written in your chart and like there's transits that are like supportive. Yeah, it's like it all if you are able to tap into the intelligence and like the guide of what astrology and your birth chart offer, then you will notice synchronicities and you'll notice the mirroring of
Hmm.
energies that are like present in yourself and also present in your environment. And you're going to be like, oh, this is all like shifting me towards this. This is
Yes.
why I have to engage in this. Like, it's
Yes.
so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's a good ending
Cool.
point. I feel like we like went
Yeah.
over like just like the overall view of what astrology is.
Me too. Oh, yes. So I have a little thing I wanted to tell y'all about. With my little Etsy shop, Brilliant Pit, the link is in the bio. By the time this is out, I will have a spring astrology weekly planner slash to-do list bundle. So it's going to be for Aries season, for Taurus season, and for Gemini season. And on the back of each of these journal prompt, weekly journal prompts that also have a moon calendar, there'll be just a lined to-do list. So it's perfect for like your home office, it's perfect for your office, and just like if you want to just tap into the energy of the month of the astrology season specifically, the journal prompts are laid out in the weeks of the exact astrology season. So it's not by the month, it's by the season of astrology of whichever sign we're in. So it's a really interesting one. I've never seen this kind of laid out in this way, so I'm excited to how people interpret it. And I encourage you to check it out. It's in my Etsy shop.
I love Liz's creations with her calendars. They're like there's some energy behind it that's like really, really palpable and can bring you into a new sense of like flow in your life. So check it
Yes.
out.
Thank you.
Cool.
Cool.
We'll
All
see you
right.
guys next time.
Yeah.
Leave a comment, ask us questions. We like love to answer questions, so
Yeah.
ask those questions about
Ask us
anything.
questions. Yes. And I would love to eventually make episodes about people's questions and or just like
Yes.
what people want to know more of. So definitely leave feedback if you are interested, and we will see you next time.
Cool. Bye.
Bye, everyone.